Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Jones, and I'm the chair of the Armed Forces History Division at the American History Museum. And I'm here to demonstrate the gunboat Philadelphia today. And a number of people stopped me in the hallway, excuse me, at American History and said, why did they do this to the gunboat Philadelphia? Well, if anybody's seen this object at American History, you'll realize it's in a really dark corner, sort of shoved in back towards a dark area, and it's really hard to see and to interpret. But what we can tell you is the reason why it's in American History's collections. As Dr. Clough said earlier, it was built in 1776 on Lake Champlain, and the Philadelphia remains right now the oldest intact man of war on public exhibition in the United States. It was designed by Brigadier General Benedict Arnold, of later known fame to have been a traitor to America. And it was one of 8 gondolas or gunboats that were fitted for service in defense of the northern frontier of the colonies. And it was sunk at the Battle of Valcour Island on October 11th in 1776. She was built in less than 2 months, and in 2 months' time, she was at the bottom of the lake. So what we can show you is how the gunboat was so well preserved at the time she was found in 1935 that she was able to be raised and exhibited on Lake Champlain and then brought to the Smithsonian in the 1960s. What we've done with the Philadelphia viewer is allowed students to understand how this gunboat worked, as well as what her significance was during the Battle of Valcour Island. Literally, she did her job. She was there to just stop the British from cutting off the northern colonies from the southern colonies, and it delayed the British from going in and taking over forts in that area. One of the things that we were able to discover in 1973 was a payroll that had previously been unknown to exist, that was able to give us the names and information about the 44 men and the crew of the gunboat Philadelphia. As Adam said earlier, we are in beta. We did upload a bunch of images last night, but as the tool was being moved onto the public website, they did not actually load. So we will have a lot more images later as we move forward. One of the things that we have been able to do, and the 3D tool was an interesting process, was it was really interesting to see Gunter get up on the deck in order to do an interview. It was interesting to see all of the materials and the technology in use on a 53-foot long boat. One of the things that we really were anticipating this 3D technology helping us with is to understand what's actually happening with the gunboat Philadelphia at this time. Not just from the historical perspective, but from a conservation perspective. In 2002, we were able to actually do photo documentation and take core samples of the gunboat itself, and that was with the Texas A&M Nautical Archaeology lab. From that, we got a full report to understand what's happening. Because the Philadelphia was underwater for 135 years in the cold, dark waters of Lake Champlain, she was very well preserved. What has happened since then is the technology that raised her is obsolete. The person was not a nautical archaeologist, but he was a salvage engineer. So the technology that brought her up was of the time, but not of how we would look at underwater archaeology at this time. When we brought her into the museum in the 1960s, the thing to do was take her lines. And we do have a full set of her ship's plans, and from them we were able to actually make a model of the Philadelphia as she probably would have appeared at the time of the Revolution, when she would have actually been sailing. The thing that was helpful with that is in the 1980s, the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum used those ship plans to actually build a full replica and model of the gunboat Philadelphia. Right now I'm just sort of giving you an idea of the information that we've been able to pull up and use the model to see what's going on with the object itself. So the Battle of Valcour Island, as I said, the gunboat Philadelphia sunk. You can see on her starboard side the fact that the Crown's broad arrow on what is that? The ball that felled her was at waterline, and that's the hole that she actually sunk with, and that is actually the cannonball from the British ship that sunk her. And so we were able to actually look at that and diagnose what her draw was in the water. She took on how many pounds? She was a displacement of 29 tons. Her front cannon was 3,500 pounds, and in order to accommodate that on a gun platform with a flat bottom, they had to have a lot of ballast rock in the back. So these are the kinds of things that we're learning about, that we are able to actually see through not only the 3D technology, but also through taking plans. But the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum did make a full replica model, which you can actually see sail in the summers up on Lake Champlain. One of the things I did want to show is the information. We were able to embed a video into the piece to show you what the raising of the Philadelphia was looking like at that time. And here they are taking the cannon off they took the cannon off before they raised it, and then they had spreaders to keep her so that she didn't collapse from the weight. And she was pulled up with her cannons off, but all of the ballast rock and all the water as it came up, she was able to be raised once again, and they flew a flag on her. But here she comes. How we want to use the tool in the future is for students and STEM technology. One of the things that we find could be very important is in understanding how the side cannon would have worked when there was a crew of 44 men on board. It's not a big boat, it's 53 feet. Most of the starboard and the aft section would have been where the crew would have stayed. Everybody had a job, and these two cannon, as they move side to side, is something we would like to continue to further develop. So the model and the 3D has actually helped us with a couple of, ask more questions than we have answers for. So we want to know what's going on with the object itself from a conservation standpoint, and we're hoping the 3D technology will take us in a new direction with that. We're hoping to be able to use this as a tool for students in the classroom who are interested in STEM technology. So looking at the cannon moving back and forth, because they have to fire one at a time. How did the 12-pounder gun actually work? The model replica up on Lake Champlain, they couldn't put a 3,500-pound cannon on the front of the boat without sinking it. And so these are all inquiry areas that we hope that students and the public help us understand in the future. We plan on using this as actually a fundraising tool. We are hoping that this is the next major object for the National Museum of American History, as was the Star-Spangled Banner before it, to undertake a preservation assessment and to look to the future needs of this object so that we can preserve it for another 150 years. Thank you.